You're listening to Mnd Matters, a podcast from the Mnd Association.
Welcome to Mnd Matters, brought to you by the Mnd Association. Alongside members of the Mnd community, including people affected by the disease, health and social care professionals and supporters, we will be bringing stories, information and expertise direct to your ears. Subscribe to ensure you don't miss an episode. I'm Nick, and I work in the research team at the Mnd Association.
And I'm Steph from the fundraising team.
We also have two very special guests with us today. Kevin Sinfield, Director of Rugby, former player and captain of Leeds Rhinos, an all-round superhero for his 7 in 7 challenge. 7 marathons in 7 days, all completed within 4 hours, all to help his friend and legend of league Rob Burrow and his family after Rob was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. Also joining us is Jonathan Griffiths. Jonathan lives in Leeds with his wife Louise and daughter Chloe. He's a big rugby league fan and supports his local team Hunslet. Jonathan's a member of our West Yorkshire branch and he oversees the placing of collection tins in his area to raise money for the association. He was diagnosed with MND in 2018 when he was 44. Jonathan will tell us what it was like to see Kev's 7 in 7 challenge unfold, and Kev about the challenge itself and how the funds raised will be used. We will also discuss our commitment of an additional £2 million for MND research.
So Kevin, it's been quite a while since you took that first step on your 7 in 7 challenge, but let's go back to the beginning of the story and tell us a bit more about how you felt when you found out your friend Rob had been diagnosed with MND.
Yeah, I don't actually quite like revisiting that day, but I do understand why. I think we'd sort of noticed, Rob had some speech difficulties, and to actually get the diagnosis through, to sort of be part of the journey with Rob, to understand the specialist he was going to see, the tests he was undertaking. And us, I suppose, to be blindsided a little bit by the outcome. It took us all by surprise. Certainly rattled everybody, and I think at that point you start to try and understand what it means. You try to understand sort of the prognosis, what actually happens, what's going to effectively the challenge that Rob's going to face and the family, what's it going to look like, and you start to process some of that and understand it. And the first thing everybody does, they type it into Google and they start to read a lot of horror stories. And at that point, I suppose, we was all rattled, we was all upset, we were all disappointed, all absolutely devastated for Rob and the family, to have 3 young children, and to understand then the two big stats that stick out are a third of people die within the first 12 months and then 50% die within the first 2 years. They're just horrendous stats for anybody to face. And for us as former teammates and friends, you just, I suppose, selflessly you think about how it would affect your own life and how it would affect your own family. And, to see a good friend having to go through this and face these challenges is really, really tough, but one that we're probably really fortunate because of the friendships we have. In that network came together, and the Batman sign and the Batman call went out, and all those players and those friendships that we've relied on for so many years actually came to the fore, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's been absolutely incredible to see the support that yourself and your teammates have given to Rob. And I think Rob's been so inspiring in the way he's been so open and brave in sharing his story, particularly in the media. And how has it felt to see that growing support for Rob in the community since he started sharing his story?
Yeah, I just think the reaction and the response has been wonderful. Rob has had that effect on people all through his rugby career because he was a 5 foot 4 inches tall in a game played by warriors and big blokes, and for Rob to be able to achieve what he did and defy the odds for all those years was remarkable. And he sort of had a lot of people who absolutely respected him, thought it was wonderful. They loved seeing him play. they might not have been Leeds Rhinos fans, but actually the game looked at this little guy and saw what he did and was so inspired by him. So for him to then set out on this next challenge, if that's what we'd call it, or this next fight, and handle it the way he did, to be so open and giving, to be so sharing, is so brave and courageous. And you're right, the respect and the support people gave him has been incredible. I think Rob has given so many people some hope. He's given them some inspiration, and Rob has made it okay to be able to say, you know, people have either got MND or a member of their family hasn't. People are starting to understand it now, which I think is a huge step forward.
Absolutely. I think definitely by, anyone sharing their story about how they've been affected by MND, it helps other people to not feel so alone. And I know Jonathan was watching that coverage and has seen MND placed at the front and centre of the media, thanks to Rob, thanks to your 7 in 7 challenge, thanks to other people sharing their stories. But Jonathan, how has that felt to see the media around Rob's story?
When I was diagnosed back in 2018, I didn't know what it was, and like Kev says, the first thing you do, Google, and you come home, and since Rob's diagnosis, the awareness of MND has shifted up, and living with MND, finding out about the side effects, the medication, all the research that's going on, that's helped in the media, so everybody's realised that it's not a difficult disease. Well, it is a difficult disease, but I mean, it's understandable to put it out there in the media when people thought, well, what is it? And I bet, like you say, a lot of people have Googled it, and getting it out there with Rob telling his story, certainly that documentary, it's helped a lot of people understand how, what, and various other things.
It is really important that awareness that's been raised through the activities that have gone on through Kevin's challenge. It's absolutely vital. There's so many things that we struggle with working with MND. The process of diagnosis is so difficult. Finding effective treatments for it, really problematic. And as you say, it devastates families. So being able to bring that out into the open in such a way, there's been a real fantastic positive movement, I think, on the back of this challenge and other things as well. From my point of view, working in the association, it's exactly what we need to get it front and center. And there is something that causes motor neuron disease, and there is a treatment out there somewhere, and we just need to find it. And if we can raise that awareness, which leads to raising funds and do that research and also look after people with MND and their families, then that's exactly what we need to do. So, Kev, you're kind of at that position where you really want to help Rob out, and you're thinking about doing some events. We're in the midst of COVID and all kinds of things going on in the country. Money's tight for people, and you presumably have had to cancel lots of events you were thinking of doing. So somehow you've ended up saying, right, I'm going to run 7 marathons in 7 days. You could have sat in a bath of beans for 7 days, but how did you end up doing that? And how did you end up with other people coming along with you?
Yeah, it's been a sort of strange 15, 16 months, I think, on the back of Rob being diagnosed. What we found was the club. The club has been absolutely wonderful in their response, and then that team, that group that had such a close bond and had some wonderful friendships came to the fore. As you're aware, very quickly, Jamie Jones kindly shared his testimonial game with Rob, which meant that whole band of brothers put the boots on for one more time and got a few minutes on the pitch, which was a wonderful day. With a sellout crowd, it was shown on Sky Sports. Just like the awareness we generated on the back of that, and some well-needed funds was magnificent. Straight away, we had a load of momentum to raise funds, which was huge for us, given what Rob was facing in the family. But also the awareness to generate for the Mnd Association and for so many other people out there. Then COVID hit, as you said, and the initial one was, right, well, I'm going to run a marathon in April, and it'll be for Rob. Now, I'd never run Manchester Marathon, so I was in for Manchester. I could sense that we're about to get cancelled. So very quickly turned my attention, right, well, I'm still going to run a marathon, but I'll do it in Saddleworth, and I'll do it on my own, just before lockdown hit that first time. And then we all got locked down, didn't we? We all got stuck, and there was all different restrictions, and that put a stop to many things. But I always planned on doing something later in the year. Didn't quite think 7 in 7, but it was always going to be another marathon, if I'm honest. And then just got really inspired by some of what my other teammates or former teammates did. Jamie Peacock did an ultra marathon as we come out of lockdown that first time. Barry McDermott, Keith Senior, and a number of others did 3 peaks in 24 hours. And I just thought, right, well, I want to do something special for Rob. Christmas was a big landmark for us because right the way through, when Rob got diagnosed last December, or 2019 December, we wanted to make sure the following Christmas he woke up that Christmas morning and were just absolutely able to focus on the kids and not have any concerns about what life was going to look like for the next few months or years, but actually know that financially that was taken care of. But we were well short of that target. So the plan was to try and raise 77 grand, as you know, 777, all around Rob's squad number. And it was a challenge that I felt I only had a short space of time. I didn't have, nobody could go on holiday. And I thought, well, I'll take 7 days off and I'll just try and do something with my time. Very quickly, I asked a few mates if they'd be interested, knowing that we had to follow Rule of 6. We planned to go from Scotland and work our way down and involve Doddy Weir, who's been wonderful, involve Stephen Darby, who again has been wonderful for Rob, and incorporate sort of that MND community and try and get people on the journey with us. However, that got quickly scuppered with the different restrictions and authorities, and we had to get MPs involved, local councillors, and we managed to say, right, well, we're just going to go in Oldham and Leeds, and everybody worked so hard in putting it together. We threw it together in 6 weeks. Why 7 in 7? Purely because the numbers worked. Thought, right, it's got to be all around it. Now, I'm just glad he wasn't number 33 or number 88. But it just worked for the numbers. I didn't quite think about how it would piece together, whether it was going to be doable for me and the other guys who took part. But it was absolutely the best thing I've ever done, best thing I've ever been involved in. The awareness we created, the support, the fundraising we got, and that were, that weren't just down to that team who ran, or the guys who were on the bikes with us who provided some wonderful support. That was down to the BBC, it was down to the Mnd Association, and just how it got pushed. The support we got through the BBC was incredible, and Sally Nugent and Dan Walker and Claire Ryan at the BBC, everybody involved just pushed. And then Phil Daly, our Rhinos media manager, who's played a huge part in helping shape where some of this money gets spent. He's a very good friend of Rob's too. The way he pushed it, the way he opened media outlets, the way he opened interviews up, we did everything we could just to get that message out there. So the whole thing was brilliant. We set off day one with 40 grand in the bank. We were actually I can remember being in that car park at 6:30 that first morning. So I'm thinking, have we bitten off a bit more than we can chew here? We're not quite sure if we're going to hit our target. And that target just meant we're a bit closer to that magic number for Christmas morning for Rob. And for it to do what it did was just incredible. And I think to be back in a team, to do something for a former teammate who's fallen on some tough times, but at the end of it, to provide some hope to that full MND community, to the messages of support, the emails I've received, were just so humbling. And like I said, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Fantastic. And I'd recommend anybody catches the RAM film that was made, the Inside Story, which really shows kind of the struggle of it actually, and that camaraderie. Everybody that came with you all had their own little stories and their own issues. It's really phenomenal, and the kind of risk, I guess, that anything could have happened with injury, that kind of thing. And for it all to come together in the way that it did was just amazing, absolutely inspirational story. And I think really in terms of yourself and Rob being such great leaders and inspiring people, I think that's one of the sort of secret formulas for making the thing such a success. It just gathered so much momentum. So as you were kind of going along, I guess you thought you wanted to hit the 77,000 target. What was it like as you saw the total just going completely crazy and the awareness for it? It was from where I was standing, I had mates phoning me up, messaging me saying, "This is incredible. Have you seen what this guy's doing?" And the reaction from people.
Yeah, it's mad when you think we were just going for a run. Do you know, when it all boils down, we just had 7 runs. So just think of where it went. We were absolutely all bowled over, and you know, when we get chance, that team will celebrate that week, because for all of us, I think we're pretty life changing. Just to go through that, to experience it, to experience the support, the love. So many well wishers out there. You know, when actually you're just trying to do your little bit, and if you'd have said to me today, you know, you'd have hit your target, and that's all you would have got, you know, I wouldn't hesitate to do it again tomorrow, because although the money was brilliant, actually just the effect it had on that MND community and for Rob and his family was far greater than anything else you could have given us. And again, I will say it was 7 runs, and you know, you look out there, there's people doing some magnificent charity events that are far greater and far tougher than what we did. But I think Rob's story really resonated with families, and like I said, once again, the work the BBC did, the work our media manager did, and the fact that probably we're in the middle of COVID, we're leading into Christmas, people are starting to put the Christmas decks open and just wanted something to feel good about, and hopefully our 7 in 7 showed that sometimes, you know, putting yourself out there and doing something for others can give far greater satisfaction than anything else, and we certainly found that.
Definitely. I know I was checking my, you know, the TV, checking Just Giving, just watching for updates on my phone continually. And I think it definitely was at a time where you just needed some hope in general, of course. Obviously, you know, working at the association, knowing so many people affected by this disease, I'm so passionate about anything that's being done for the association. So I would have been on board with that anyway. But I think across, for everyone, it was just seeing you doing something for your friend who's in a really difficult time, as you say. And it was just so inspiring. You know, 7 marathons in 7 days. I've run a marathon. 7 in 7 days makes me feel a little bit sick. And I think people who hadn't ran a step could still think that was an incredible challenge, and people that have ran loads still think that's an incredible challenge. So it was just a winning formula, really, but absolutely incredible to see it unfold. And I know, Kev, you've mentioned the support that you had from the MND community throughout, and I know that was really important for you. But Jonathan, how did it feel for you to see that breadth of support for people affected by MND and the donations coming from everywhere, really? You know, 4 people affected by this disease.
We heard on the news that Kevin was doing this 7 in 7, the total to achieve. We were informed through the West Yorkshire branch of the Mnd Association. We all talked, and you know, we kept an eye on the total, and as it was going up, and it was going up and going up, it got to where it's like, what? This is unbelievable. Such an inspiration to so many people to do something. You know, just shows what an impact you had doing 7 in 7, and you know, I encourage everybody to get involved somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, and it obviously resulted in an incredible £2.2 million coming to the Mnd Association, which we are just so grateful for, Kev, and to absolutely everybody that donated. And you know, the impact that is going to make is just absolutely, you know, it's just incredible for the association. So yeah, we can't thank you enough.
No, you don't have to thank me. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, it was the best thing I've ever done, and if I could do it again tomorrow, I absolutely would. I'd have to get some time off work, but yeah, I would do so in a heartbeat. It was brilliant, and I know Nick asked a question earlier about the money and it ticking over. There was two really sort of poignant moments, and the first one was, it was day 5, and Rob was viewing the mural that was being opened up, if you like, on that day. And as we got there, and as we ran past Rob, and as we had that very small embrace, in fact, I nearly got run over by a bus. We hit the 500k target, and it was just sort of, you couldn't have scripted it any better. And then on the final day, we was on sort of the last couple of Ks. I think we had 2.5k to go, and I ran past my old high school, which both my children were at, because schools were back open then, but both my children were at. One of them was doing his mock exams. The other one had been brought out of his lesson to meet us. And as I saw my youngest son, we hit £1 million as well. So it was two sort of huge moments where you go, someone's looking after us here, someone's making sure we get this done, and someone's sending us a couple of special messages. So it was brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah, amazing that. And I think your eldest lad, Jack, was it, who he ran the last marathon as well with Dave, was it one of the chaps?
Yeah. So, David, straight away when I mentioned, I'm thinking of doing this, just said, can I do it with you? However, his final training run, he tore his calf, and he said, right, I'm going to walk him every day, and I'm going to walk him in 7 hours, and I'll just get through. And thankfully, I was able to do the last one. But my eldest son did day 5 with him. They was up at 4 a.m. and off they went, and they got it done in 7 hours. So that was really, it was really great that Dave did what he did, and still wanted to be a huge part in it, and he was. We all felt a little bit sorry for him, because he did, I think, the first 3 or 4 on his own. And then after that, people started to go with him and help him out a little bit and get him over the line. But yeah, it was really special that my eldest went with him one day.
Yeah, great as a dad to have your kids interested in what you're doing and proud of you and things. That is a very special thing that we're very fortunate to have those of us who do. So you've been left with a really good problem to have. So where to spend the money? And I know that the association, it was very important for us to work with you, Rob and Leeds Rhinos, to discuss how the money that you raised should be used. So we talked with you through a lot of options. So what was the process for that, and how did you decide what you wanted the money to fund?
Yeah, I think it was really difficult, yet also a really nice problem to have. As you rightly pointed out, the vast majority of the money came to the Mnd Association. An amount went to Rob as well, which was what it was all about, and making sure actually we hit that target on Christmas Day, which I'm so thankful for, to be able to do that. The first thing, we wanted to be able to support those who've been diagnosed, to provide care, to educate people better on understanding this disease, so that people could be better at dealing with it. And the second one was for research, to make sure that existing treatments didn't and trials didn't run out of cash, but also the big drive in all that research stuff is to try and find a cure, try and find a way of helping people. Now, we went about it, or tried to go about it, in a two-pronged way, because we felt there was a huge need for that care and support. And as Jonathan rightly pointed out, like we all were, the first thing you do is Google it. So that education, is it on hand? Is it concise? Make sure it's not conflicting with any other advice out there. Let's make it really simple for families to understand what is happening. And then obviously the research is the big one, because we want to stop this happening. We want to make everybody's journey through this as easy as possible too. So with Rob having a young family, families and children and young people were really important to where some of these funds went. The care centres, of which there are 22 across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, were really important too, because that's the first place that people get signposted to. And within that, it's a sort of a multidisciplinary support network that people get. Now, rather than go and seeing a dietitian, a speech therapist, someone who's going to work on your muscles. Rather than having to go to different places to get all that treatment, it's provided at these care centres, so you can get it all in the best that there is, but you get it all in one place, which makes that journey or that patient's day a little bit more easier to handle. Some funding towards the Mnd Connect, which is the helpline, which is so important, so people can just pick up the phone and get an answer and be able to talk to someone who understands what is going on. The clinical trials to make sure that some of these care centres, the 22 that I've touched upon, are better set up and resourced to be able to do some of the testing, some of the trials that take place. Now, some of them aren't capable of doing it at the minute. We wanted to make sure that that was spread right across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And then I suppose the final one was to aid ongoing research, but new research as well, and be able to provide that support. And we were really keen on that being a collaborative approach with some of the stuff Doddy's Trust and does up in Scotland, but just make sure everything was joined up. And I have to say, the Mnd Association have been absolutely wonderful. The support, the knowledge, being able to educate myself, Phil and Sian, has been really, really helpful, and I suppose really helped us put a plan together, because you can go into this blind, there's all that money, and in effect we were happy to hand it over and say you spend it where it's needed, but I think it's really important that we understood it. And then ultimately Rob, Lindsay, Rob's mum and dad were part of the journey too, although they weren't at the forefront of it where we got to, and when that the final proposal was put together, it was really important we got them to be happy with it as well, because they've lived it and they understand it. And if there was anything we've missed or there were any holes in it, I wanted us to make sure that were covered off. And like I said, the Mnd Association have done a wonderful job. I'm really proud of how that money will be utilised, and hopefully this is just the start of more fundraising, more awareness, and yeah, we can just continue with it.
I think that's absolutely right, and it's good that you've taken a great interest and an understanding in the kind of depth and breadth of what we do as an association and what is actually going on and where the money's going to. We're really greatly appreciative of that, and also saying that this will move things forward as well. So your contribution is making those ripples that will go all the way through the M&D research community, all the way through the care side of M&D and the campaigning side that we do as an association. So we're extremely grateful for that, and yet this is the start of great things to come. We're pushing at the door for research, effective treatments, and good things around the corner. We certainly hope so.
Really, what those funds can achieve is absolutely incredible, and we are really grateful to you, and we really appreciate the thought that you've put into it, and the considerations that Rob and his family and everyone at the Rhinos as well. It's really important that the money is spent where you want it to be, and where it will obviously make such a huge impact as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Look, like I said, a couple of minutes ago, we were absolutely confident and believed that the Mnd Association would spend that money where it needed to be spent, and so throughout this whole process, it's been done where we've been educated along it, and I think that's been really important for us to understand things a little bit more. And like I said, the Mnd Association is a wonderful charity. It's one that I said during the marathons, but really proud to wear that number 7 on my shirt. But I was equally as proud to wear that vest and that snood. So it's been a really, really refreshing process, and I'm delighted that people get to understand where the money they've donated is going to be spent and used, and to have that transparency, to be able to give the clarity to people out there that this money isn't going to be wasted. It's going to be used in the best possible ways to help and provide hope. I think that's really important.
That's right. I mean, we understand that people are giving their pocket money. Kids at school giving their pocket money to us as well as larger donations, and we do everything we can to make sure that is used in the best possible ways, and that's really important to all of us at the association for sure. And Jonathan, would you like to share some of your experiences of when you became involved with the association and some of the services you've been able to take advantage of?
I'll see Professor Dame Show, or Dame Professor Show, whichever way you want to put it. Gave various samples to try and do help my bit with genetics research, but also try and find out exactly what I got. Was diagnosed with progressive muscular atrophy, PMA, and from that point onwards, the association was so helpful, because it's a devastating diagnosis. It took me a couple of days, I think, at least, to understand what I've been diagnosed with. And from that, I was passed over to the Mnd Association, who put me in touch with the West Yorkshire branch, which is a support group, if you like. We meet once a month virtually at the minute, with carers, other people living with MND, and families. And that was a great help for me to meet other people. I could talk through the symptoms I've got, talk my diagnosis with them, and understand it a bit more. And then you go to the care centres. I went to the one in Seacroft. They were so helpful as well. They got me in touch with the right people. And like Kev says, you're there, you see everyone in one place. Speech therapist, physiotherapist, wheelchair services, the whole kit and caboodle are there. And they put me in with the right wheelchair for support. I go regular to test the breathing. You see a speech therapist, you see all sorts of people, like I say. And it's just amazing, the camaraderie, I suppose, like you said earlier. But going to that MND support meeting once a month, I think that's the biggest thing that's helped. I've not used the MND Connect. When I first was diagnosed and got in touch with the association, I was told to visit this support group, and I think that helped me get through it rather than going to the MND Connect. That was my experience. Dealing with them was the best thing I've had. All my family's been so supportive as well. It's devastating for both Louise, my wife, and Chloe, my daughter. We were all devastated. But speaking to the other people, it's not less devastating, but you feel, like you say, not alone. When you first diagnosed, you feel like you're the one, you're the only one who's got it. And certainly, like I said, with not understanding what the disease is, certainly felt even more alone. And then education, the awareness, brings you into that bubble. You see all them people, you talk to them, you realise that, okay, I can do this. And then Rob gets his diagnosis, and it's like, oh my God, this is a fit rugby player. It just goes to show it can happen to anybody. And you realise how devastating it can be to those people, or to everybody. What can I say? But support, that's the key word, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is absolutely devastating. And one thing that we say is that MND doesn't discriminate. It can affect anybody. And we do our best, as we say, with care, campaigning and research. You touched on MND Connect there. We got in touch with over 3,000 people with MND during the pandemic. We answer about 6,000 calls a year, and emails, trying to give out that advice and signpost people to the best care and services we possibly can. And again, we're actually trying to crack the disease, understand the biology of it, find effective treatments, and get people into clinical trials to really get ourselves to a world free from MND. And it's interesting you said there that you've taken part in research studies and given samples. And one thing that's absolutely certain is this really collaborative attitude of people affected and living with MND, that they're willing to take part in these research studies, which can't happen without that collaboration and the sort of sacrifice and bravery of the people who take part in them. So we're very, very grateful for that. And Kev, as a result of your work and the increased awareness that's led to additional fundraising activity and the response of the community during the pandemic, it's actually meant that as an association, we've been able to commit an extra £2 million to MND research on top of our £3 million that we've already committed this year. So this is going to be an incredible addition, and more research projects, more discoveries, and more understanding of the disease, leading us down the path towards those effective treatments. So I talked earlier about those ripples that go across, from one person's piece of work and your 7 in 7 challenge. Can you believe that actually on the back of standing in that car park thinking you're going to do this little run, you've now been able to leverage, and this extra funding is going to be available to get more research done?
No, and it's. I think if we start to think of it like that, I'll end up choking up. So I think for all of us that took part in the 7 in 7 last year, it'll be something we continue. I don't quite think it'll be 7 marathons in 2021, but who knows yet? We're still throwing ideas together. I think COVID will dictate how big or small our next event will be. But I think one of the things we've been proud of is the amount of people that have taken up their own 7 in 7, and they're still taking place. The amount of money that's been raised also by all of those people has been wonderful. And if we've inspired one person to just get up and go for a walk, then absolutely we've done our job from an exercise perspective. But you're right, the funds are mind blowing. What is going to be utilised in 2021 towards all the things we've discussed: that care, that education, the campaigning, raising awareness, treatments, support. So we're absolutely bowled over, all of us. And you keep saying me and my 7 in 7. There were so many other people involved, and I was just part of the team. And like I said, I got to the stage where I just had to get up and run every day, and that was the easy bit, if I'm being honest. My wife, my kids were all involved, as were all of the other 5 who were involved in it, their wives, their kids. And then it rippled further than that, because people's friends and everybody wanted to help out. And I'll give the BBC another rap here. They were wonderful. Jen Dodd at the Mnd Association just couldn't have been more helpful and supportive throughout it all as well. And then we did the daily Zoom, which was after each marathon. We met different families who'd been affected in different ways by MND, and for all of us, if we needed reminding what we were doing it for, absolutely Rob was at the forefront of all our thoughts. But if we needed reminding, which we didn't, then just to see how brutal this disease can be, we got that every day too. So I'm delighted to be involved in the podcast. Anything I can do going forward for the Mnd Association, I will. I think you all understand what Rob means to us all at the club, and to those friends and players who played alongside him. We love him to bits, and I think for those who were involved to still feel like Reddy Breckman now, to still have that glow, and that just the humbling experience of it all. Like I said, I'd do it all again tomorrow.
Be careful what you say, Kev. Get you signed up. But I know you've touched on potentially what's next, and you're having to think about those things. So we'll watch this space for now. I know there's so many people who've taken your lead and taken on their own 7 in 7 challenges, as you mentioned. So I'm sure whatever you and the team decide to do next, we'll see another ripple effects off the back of that, and we're very grateful. But there is still time for people to join their own 7 in 7 challenge. I mean, they don't have to run 7 marathons in 7 days, maybe more 7 cakes in 7 hours or 7 minutes if it's up to me. I think we've seen really that people are taking the 7 in 7 and doing what is suitable to them or what they want to do. And I think that's been really inspiring to see. But there's definitely still time to join the team, and we would love to welcome anybody to the 7 in 7 challenge for the association. And I know, Kev, you're always interested to see in what people are getting up to as well. So I think we've had about over 400 people now taking on a 7 in 7 challenge for the association since you did yours. So pretty incredible. Yeah, thank you.
No problem. It's brilliant. Do you know what? And I will say it now. I got it in the post probably about 3 weeks ago. You very kindly sent me my own 7 in 7 medal. Throughout all my playing career, we got given rings when we won grand finals and medals when we won Challenge Cups, and it's the thing that matters the most to me out of all of them, which is bizarre, considering you've been a professional sportsman for the best part of 20 years. But actually, it is the thing that I am so proud of, and I hope there'll be many, many others that receive that medal too.
Definitely, they're on their way out, and I'm sure they mean, for different reasons as much to them. And I can see, I can hear how much that means to you and the reasons why behind it. It's all about Rob, and that's why that medal means so much to you. But yeah, thank you so much for inspiring so many more to achieve those medals. I definitely need to get mine. I need to get thinking about those cakes.
Yeah, really looking forward to what's next. I'm thinking maybe 7 pints in 7 pubs once we get out of lockdown. If anybody wants to join me, answers on a postcard, please.
You could run to the pubs, Nick. You could run to the pubs at least.
Yeah, sure. So if you've been affected by anything you've heard today, please get in touch with us at the Mnd Association. A massive thank you to you, Kev, for your inspiration, drive, leadership, and making such a difference to the Mnd community. Getting Mnd heard in a world of noise is not an easy thing, and you've absolutely smashed that, and we will be always grateful to you, and we really look forward to seeing what's next. Thank you also to you, Jonathan, for joining us today and for all that you are doing on behalf of the association to raise awareness and funds in your local area. We wish you all the very best. And thanks to Rob and his family for their bravery in sharing their Mnd journey, raising awareness and inspiring so many of us. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to MND Matters, a podcast from the Mnd Association. Find more information at mndassociation.org, and if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in this episode, contact our helpline MND Connect on 0808 802 6262 or email mndconnect@mndassociation.org.